What would have happened if Juan Pablo Montoya had stayed with Williams for the 2005 F1 season after winning the final race of 2004? Welcome to the latest Bring Back V10's debrief with me, Glenn Freeman. Thank you as always to everyone who sent in questions in reaction to our Brazil 2004 episode in season 12. Lots of questions as always. Let's crack on. Let's begin with that Montoya theme because Peter Seletsky has our first question saying, what season would Montoya have had if he had stayed at Williams in 2005? I can't see that it would have been much better than Williams managed with Mark Webber and Nick Heidfeld. Montoya was obviously an established front runner in a way that those two weren't at that stage, but Williams was on the decline here. We would know by mid-season in 2005 that the BMW relationship was going to be over, but I think the damage was done on that front by this point. Interestingly, Montoya has said that actually he felt a lot happier at Williams and the relationship and the atmosphere was better once it was known that he was leaving. So if he wasn't leaving, I wonder if the tension that had led to him wanting to leave in the first place when he got a bit grumpy in the summer of 2003, if that had lingered because he wasn't going to leave and he was staying for 2005, we might not have seen the best of Montoya by the end of 2004 in the way that we did. And as we'll come to shortly, this was an amazing drive and a great victory in battle against Kimi Raikkonen. So that tension would have just been there and that would have reached unbelievable new heights when you got to 2005 and Williams weren't that competitive. Looking at Heidfeld and Webber's high points of that season, I don't really see any immediately where I think if Montoya had been in the car there, those good qualifying performances or the odd podium finish that they had, like they were 2-3, I think, at Monaco, I don't think that's automatically a win just if Montoya's in the car. I don't think the drivers were what was letting Williams down that year. Williams' problems were much deeper by that point, and I actually think Montoya and Williams ended on such a brilliant high here with the Brazil victory. It could have ended at an explosive low if he'd wanted to get out but couldn't, had stayed for longer, had stayed for 2005. The decline really starts to take hold then. Yeah, it could have been quite ugly. So I'm glad we didn't see that. And I don't think we missed out on any sort of Montoya Williams. There was no more brilliance to be had from this partnership by this point. Next question then. Jan Alexander says, it's been mentioned many times that Ron Dennis thought he could get more out of Montoya at McLaren than had been done at Williams. Do you think there was more to be got, or did we actually see Montoya's true ceiling at Williams? I think we saw that ceiling at Williams and at McLaren when things were good. I think we saw Montoya's level, which was capable of brilliant things on his day, good racecraft, and being phenomenally fast. I never got the impression at Williams or McLaren he didn't win races by accident. He won races by being brilliant, and they were thoroughly deserved. And there was a patch in 2005 when he was back, and he ended up having to help Raikkonen's title charge a bit later in the year. But I would say late summer onwards in 2005, we did see what Montoya was capable of, and it was great on its day, and it's a shame we didn't get to see that for longer. But in terms of Jan's question, was there more to be got than we saw at Williams? I don't think there was more left on the table for Montoya. I'd have liked to have seen him stick around beyond the summer of 2006 so he could do what he'd already done for a few more years. Imagine if he'd stayed at McLaren for 2007 when the car was really good again. It would have delayed Lewis Hamilton's debut in F1, I imagine. But Montoya and Fernando Alonso in the really good 2007 McLaren, sign me up. There'd have been more victories. It'd have been more impressive stuff to come from Montoya. He wasn't a spent force in F1 by the time he walked away. I guess he just decided that he'd had enough. Right, Aidan Dulori is next. It's quite a long comment, but the question at the end is, would Montoya have got on better at McLaren without the motorbike tennis accident that got him injured early in the year? Feels like the support for him went completely after that incident, and it was Kimi's team from then on. Similar answer to the last question. I don't think it would have gone that differently. I do think it derailed his start at McLaren, but I do think the version of Kimi Raikkonen he was up against at that time would probably have got the upper hand on Montoya anyway, because I think mid-2000s Raikkonen is peak Raikkonen. The shame is, as I said, I think it could have lasted for longer. Maybe that faith was eroded early on, and maybe Montoya didn't feel that loved in 2006, and that's part of the reason he walked away. We may never know. Like, the people involved in this have always been quite coy about why Montoya left when he did. Maybe we'll do a mid 2006 episode. We'd have to do Indy 2006, wouldn't we, as a V8's episode to get into Montoya's departure, because it is really interesting, but it's a bit murky. So I think Raikkonen would have had control of the team at the time, but Montoya would have given him a good run for his money. And as I say, in the second half of 2005, his level was really good. It's a shame he couldn't show that earlier in the year, but at the very beginning of the year, the McLaren wasn't quite where it needed to be anyway. They focused so much at the very start of the season on looking after the tyres, because you couldn't change tyres that season, that they were actually struggling to fire them up in qualifying at the start of the race. I think they cracked that a few races in. We had Raikkonen leading from pole at Imola, and then he blew up. So we had the classic McLaren reliability, or Mercedes reliability issues there. But yeah, I think it was going to go that way anyway. I think Raikkonen would have got the upper hand, but it'd been brilliant to see them both have a full season. And as I said, I'd love to have seen Montoya stay at McLaren. I think Montoya and Ron Dennis, we mentioned, was there more that Ron could have got out of Montoya? It was probably always destined to end badly, but I'd have liked it to have ended badly after more success, more victories, before Montoya probably felt put out by the fact that Fernando Alonso was in the team. How different would that be? There's a rabbit hole here that I'm not going to go down, because you've got lots of Brazil 2004 questions to get on with. John Curry says, on reflection, would you consider Brazil 2004 Montoya's best win in F1? So many of his wins were quite similar to this. Monaco 03, Britain, Brazil 05 were all race-long duels, mostly against Kimi. But given Ralph wasn't a factor here, and the FW26, the 2004 car, wasn't a patch on the FW25 or the McLaren MP420, I think this one edges it. I'm happy to go with that, John. I agree. It's another brilliant race-long charge. It was a flat-out race. That was how you had to race then. He had to be opportunistic in where he got Raikkonen, because there was so little to choose between them. He didn't make a mistake. I think Montoya sometimes unfairly has a reputation of being a bit too wild. This was a perfect example of how he could just execute a race and be relentless and not leave anything on the table. So it's a great victory. It's a special victory to him as well. I think we mentioned in the episode, he bought this car. He bought that very chassis with his own money, and BMW wouldn't give him an engine. So it sits in his kind of personal warehouse, but he can't use it. But that's how special this race, and it being his last race for Williams as well. And I think he does look back now on his time with Williams very fondly. There was a quote that I think we had that we may not have used, where Montoya did say that the 2004 Williams by the end of the year was his favourite car to drive, because it was just all about pure performance, grip and speed and power. And obviously that wasn't quite the case in 2005 when the regulations slowed the cars down a bit. So yeah, I think everything about this race means that it adds up, and it means a lot to Montoya as well. And it's a brilliant performance, and that's why it's fun to go back and look at this and look at how the Williams-Montoya relationship, as rocky as it was during their time together at times, I think it's great that this ended on a high, because so many relationships like this, famous ones, don't. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, that's where we're going to end this effectively preview of the Bring Back V10's debrief. There are much longer videos for each one of these that we put on YouTube. Thank you to those of you who come and watch these on YouTube, and we hope you're enjoying the chunks that we put out. Our members on Patreon ask loads of questions about each episode. I never get to all of them, but it means we have these really long chats. I guess they're a chat. It's me talking to you guys. I'm doing all the talking, answering your questions. But just in this episode alone, we're going to get on to the teams behind Ferrari. What did this mean for Renault and BAR by this stage? Unfortunately, we had loads of questions about Jacques Villeneuve. We had a few more about some of the news stories we've talked about. So, what was going on with Williams and BMW, the Mika Hakkinen to Williams rumours. That was all quite fun. And then, just other bits and pieces about the state of F1 in 2004 and some things about the Brazilian Grand Prix. So we'd love for you to come and check out the full show. There's a back catalogue of all this stuff and all our other bonus shows as well. There's a pinned comment if you want to go straight to the full episode of this to check it out in more detail. We'd love to have you over there. And if you're not coming over, don't worry, we'll keep putting these up on YouTube as well in the shorter form. So you'll see another one of these very soon.